Happy Friday, it's your coach Joe Lucas. Hey, I hope you had a great week, and like me, on Strategic Day today, I'll be working on a new program which I'll be debuting actually in Toronto later on this month. Several of you wrote from yesterday's video that I posted about, really ranking and grading your client relationships on the 4 criteria. So a couple of you wrote back, okay, hey, I did a couple of those, and I got some clients I want to get rid of. So today's video, if you will, is going to be about how do you fire a client, which is interesting because a lot of advisors really, they don't know how to do it, or they don't know how to do it effectively, or they're afraid to do it, which is probably really more the operative word here. So let's say you have somebody and based on likable, profitable, coachable, leverageable, right, the 4 criteria, they don't pass the test. Well, now what do you do? I know what most of you would like to do. Have a little letter sent out, almost like a reverse ACAT, right? Hey, we're just going to send them their money back and let them figure out what they want to do. That way, we don't have to talk to them anymore, right? Let's just kind of sneak off in the middle of the night, and we'll just resign, right? Unfortunately, we all know it doesn't work that way. So what do? I'm going to give you what I consider to be least effective to most effective. The least effective thing to do is send them a letter saying, hey, we're no longer a good fit, or we're going a different direction, and we'd like you to make arrangements. And I've always felt that's the coward's way out. Now, that will work if you cannot get the person. So if you have a client who's like an orphan client, can't see them, can't find them, they won't return your calls, like they've gone, dark, if you will, then yeah. But if you're going to send that letter, send it certified, return receipt. Spend the extra dollars to guarantee that you have a record of them receiving your request for them to leave. All right, put it in the file. All right, you never know when you may need that way down the road. So don't cheap it, don't kind of short-sight it. Certified mail with a letter. And again, not my favorite way. What you really want to do is have a real-time conversation with them, which I know sounds uncomfortable. And look, let's face it, I don't think anybody likes to fire anybody, even though you know you need to. Management studies have shown for decades that if a manager has to let go of a team member, it's one of the most stressful things any manager or leader has to do. Look, we've all had to do it, right? So what you want to do is bring them in, and you want to sit them down, and I call this, and it's not anything about religion. Hey, this is our coming to Jesus meeting, right? Which we're going to sit down, and we're going to have a real, honest, heart-to-heart talk about our work together. And this is where you can outline the rationale. Now, I personally would not recommend you say, hey, you know what, bottom line, I just don't like you. That's probably not going to go over real well, right? So you may want to think of some other different reasons why to do that. Usually we find, we're just not a good fit. Here's why. What you're looking for in terms of returns, in terms of service, in terms of our accessibility, it just doesn't go with the way we run our business. So you can always say that. Number two, we're changing our service, we're changing our business model, our service model, we're really going to ramp things up. And, I just don't think you're going to be comfortable paying the fees that you're going to need to pay to remain a client. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of frame it in a way. And look, maybe they're disrespectful to your team. Maybe they get on the phone and it's because they've got a couple 100,000 with you, right? That they think they can kind of walk in whenever they want and do whatever. It's almost like I own you, right? Kind of that kind of reverse relationship. And, interesting, they would never walk into their attorney's office, or call, or their doctor's office, right? It's like like in our space, like somehow we have this walk all over me plastered all over our forehead sometimes. And we've got to stop that. So you sit down, you say, here are the reasons why, and you kind of lay it out. And you can only do that effectively, by the way, if you have an abundance mentality, an abundance psychology. Because if your brain's like, oh my God, I need every first client, if you work from the scarcity place, this is why people have 700 clients and they only know 150 because they're afraid to get rid of you. They're afraid to call the book, call the herd, if you will. You need to do that. You need to graduate certain people. I've got clients, and I've had them for decades, who every year look at the bottom 10%. They do this grading system, right? Boom, boom, boom. And they look at the bottom 10%, and they go, okay, do we need to make decisions on these people? And it's a process that they do on a regular basis. So you bring them in, you sit down, or over the phone, right? Two things happen, which are really both positive. And I have no ratios on this, so again, it's all going to be situational. In some cases, they'll, well, hey, thank you for being honest with me. I appreciate that. And you're right. I haven't been feeling that same way. So I'll go make arrangements too, right? And they'll just kind of, thank you. And it's a real good adult conversation, if you will, from that perspective. Some people may get a little bit testy and like, be deflective. Like they still, like in other words, hey, I want it the way it is. I don't care what you want. I want to stay, right? And the one thing I will say is you want to, if they're going to leave, you give them a deadline. So look, we'll expedite any kind of transfer form, any kind of transfer request you have. We'll really make sure we'll do everything we can to make it as smooth as possible. But what we ask you to do is get it done next 30 days. Now, why is the next 30 days so important? Because you can have this conversation with people, and it's not like you can fire them and send them their money, right? They got to get their money out. So, or I guess in some cases, maybe you can put them in a household account, if depending on your situation, in your business, maybe you can flip them back to the firm or the custodian. So maybe that's a solution there also. But, so getting back to my two things, right? So in one case, hey, they'll thank you, or maybe not thank you, and they'll go. The second one is they'll have this epiphany, like, oh my God, I've been a real ass about things, and they'll actually get on their behavior. They'll actually apologize, and they'll become an ideal client because now all of a sudden they'll behave. Very rarely is it really a likable issue. Normally what we see, the reason why to get rid of somebody is going to be a profitability issue, but that's really not typically it either, because we'll deal with people that may not be the most economic, but they're nice, right? And they appreciate what we do, right? The number one reason you get rid of somebody is they're not coachable. They just don't listen. And you got to remember, you're responsible. Right? I don't care. You could tell yourself, well, they don't want to do anything. Hey, if that person dies and their family looks at what's going on, you'll be getting that attorney letter. This is the way the world works today, right? So again, they're either going to exit, graduate, or they're going to become model citizens for you. Either way, you have a huge win. The way you lose at this, bottom line, don't do it. Suffer. Let the clients let the inmates run the asylum, so to speak, right? That's what happens. You don't want to be in that position. So I want you to take the weekend, again, go back to, if some of you are just joining me for the first time, like, what is he talking about? Hey, go back to yesterday's video about how to rank clients, do the rankings, and then maybe on the weekend, maybe you want to, here's what I would challenge you to do. I want you, it doesn't have to be your highest economic client. Maybe there's like 2 or 3 that they're not profitable, you really don't like them, they don't take advice. Those are great practice subjects to go have this conversation. You will feel it when you fire a client or graduate a client, same thing, you will feel empowered because you will prove to yourself that you don't have scarcity, that you're going to take control over your business. So, hey, have a great weekend, enjoy, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.